You are listening to the Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
I have been staring at this talisman for about 20 minutes now. It was supposed to be a fire horse.
I mean, it looks more like a slightly angry pony to me.
Right, and it was expensive.
Yeah.
But according to the luxury market data regarding the year of the fire horse, this little statue is supposed to be channeling boldness, heritage, and high-value success straight into our studio. Honestly, I am just trying to channel audio equipment that actually works, but apparently I need to aim higher.
You know, as much as I appreciate the studio feng shui, you are actually accidentally right about the market trend. The fire horse is not just an astrological footnote, it is a legitimate economic signal right now.
See, I am not superstitious. I am just market aware.
Well, the luxury data definitely backs you up. The spending patterns are incredibly specific. We saw the high net worth crowd, the serious whales, front-loading their spending in early January. Now, in mid-January, it has shifted entirely to tradition-driven apparel. So if you have not secured your heritage piece by now, you are statistically behind the curve.
Always the way.
Yeah.
But I did not just bring up the angry pony to discuss my spending habits.
Mm-hmm.
That theme of boldness feels like the only word to describe what is happening in the tech sector lately. It feels like everyone just decided to stop testing and start shoving things straight into production.
Spot on. It really does feel like the training wheels came off. We are seeing a massive shift in how brands talk to people, but more aggressively, how machines are learning to talk to people, and how we have to talk back to them.
That is exactly the sort of thing we love unpacking here on Vocal Technologist. So let us put the talisman down and get into the actual machinery of this shift. Because the biggest headline, the one everyone is screaming about, is that the robots are officially selling out.
They certainly are. ChatGPT launching its first wave of advertisements is huge. And honestly, I reckon it is about time.
I knew you would say that. But let us look at the reality of it. We have had this sort of free lunch period where we got access to the smartest tech in history for $20 a month, or even completely free. Now the bill is due. But what struck me was not that there were ads, but what the ads actually were. I was expecting, I do not know, cheap drop shipping nonsense.
Right, the typical one weird trick to lose weight banners.
Exactly. But that is not it at all.
No. And this is the first key insight for anyone trying to understand the overarching strategy here. Look at the launch partners: Adobe, Audible, Target, and Audemars Piguet.
Audemars Piguet. We are talking about watches that cost more than a mid-sized sedan.
Precisely. This tells us everything about who they think their user is. They are not targeting the casual dome scroller. They are positioning the space as mass premium and highly design forward. They genuinely believe the person typing a prompt in is college-educated, productivity-focused, and has a high disposable income. They think you are there to work or to improve yourself.
Which makes sense, really. You do not use a complex language model to look for coupon codes for a burger. You use it to draft a legal brief or code a website. But here is the friction point for me. Is this just Facebook version 2? Are we walking straight into the exact same trap where the user just becomes the product?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question right there. The company is currently claiming they have strict guardrails in place. The pitch is that the ads will not influence the content of the actual answer. So if you ask what the best luxury watch is, it will not just lie and say Audemars Piguet simply because they paid for the slot.
They say that now.
Ah.
But we have seen this movie before.
We absolutely have. There was a former researcher who weighed in on this recently, and his take was actually pretty grim. He argued that business incentives act like gravity. Eventually, they just erode those safety measures. If ad revenue becomes the primary survival mechanism for the company, the model will eventually be optimized to show you things that make money, not necessarily things that are true.
That is the nightmare scenario. But, and I hate to play devil's advocate here, do users actually care? Because I feel like we have been conditioned to just accept this exchange.
Surprisingly, no, they do not seem to mind. The data suggests we are a very pragmatic bunch. There is a stat floating around that 80% of consumers are perfectly fine with chatbot ads, provided the core tool remains free to use.
Either the YouTube compromise. I will happily watch the 5-second ad if I get to see the video on.
Exactly. But there is a second layer to this whole environment. If the robots are now selling to us, we also have to look at how they're reading us. Because if you are a content creator or a marketer or just someone trying to get your startup noticed, the rules of the game have completely changed.
This was the part of the research that actually made me sweat a little bit. We used to write for humans. Then we spent a decade writing for traditional search algorithms. Now we are writing for what? An orchestrator.
We are writing for a very impatient, very skimming AI. We now have hard data on how these models cite information. And the numbers are brutal. 44.2% of AI citations come from the first 30% of a page.
Wait, let us pause on that. The first 30%. So I write a brilliant, nuanced article, but I put the key conclusion in the final paragraph.
To the AI, it effectively does not exist. If a key fact is buried deep in your text, it is statistically 2.5 times less likely to be picked up by the model.
That is full on. It is like a university student who only reads the abstract and the first page of the assignment.
It is all about computational efficiency. But it means the storytelling style of marketing, where you build tension and reveal the solution at the end, is dead for AI optimization. You need to front load everything. But it is not just where you put it, it is what you put there. The models are actively looking for high entity density.
High entity density. That sounds like some technobabble from Ghostbusters. Break that down for the non-engineers listening.
It is actually quite simple in practice. An entity is a specific thing. A proper noun, a specific concept, a brand name. A low-density sentence would be, we offer a leading customer management platform. A high-density sentence is, we offer a customer management platform that competes directly with Salesforce and Pipedrive.
Ah, I see. The AI craves the specifics because that helps it categorize the information accurately.
Spot on. It helps it anchor the data. It needs the receipts, basically.
All right.
If you are vague, the AI just glazes over it. If you are specific, it latches on.
So we need to write like journalists used to. Inverted pyramid, facts up front, very specific names. But how does this actually work technically? You mentioned the term orchestrator earlier.
Right. This is crucial to understand. The new chat search function is not a search engine in the traditional sense. It does not crawl the web indexing absolutely everything. It is an orchestrator. When you ask a question, a sonic classifier kicks in.
The sonic classifier.
Yes. In about 196 milliseconds, literally faster than you can blink, this classifier decides, do I already know this answer from my training data, or do I need to go look it up on the live web?
196 milliseconds. That is barely enough time to process a thought.
It is incredibly fast. And if it decides it needs fresh data, it triggers a search. But here is the kicker. It uses aggressive recency filters. It specifically hunts for content from the last 7 days, 30 days, or maybe a year at most.
So if my content is 2 years old, even if it is the absolute best article ever written on the subject,
It might get filtered out entirely simply because the orchestrator is biased toward freshness.
we really have built them in our own image. Short attention spans, skimming the headlines, and completely obsessed with whatever happened 5 minutes ago.
It is a mirror. A very fast, very expensive mirror.
Okay, so if machine is skimming and it wants entity density and it ignores anything old, is there a practical strategy here? Or do we just give up and hope for the best?
No, there is definitely a strategy. We are shifting from traditional optimization to artificial intelligence optimization. And the core of that is understanding sources of truth. The models treat certain platforms as high-trust environments.
Let me guess. Wikipedia.
Wikipedia is the gold standard, yes. But for business and culture, it is Reddit, LinkedIn, and Quora.
Reddit, the place with all the memes and the wild conspiracy theories.
The very same. But think about why. Reddit represents human consensus. It is real people arguing and voting. The AI looks at that upvote system as a proxy for truth. So brands cannot just shout from their own corporate website anymore. You need to be actively seated in the forums.
So the strategy is to go where the messy human conversations are actually happening.
Exactly. And speaking of messy conversations, there is a tactical hack here involving Google Search Console that I reckon is absolutely brilliant. You know how marketers usually obsess over keywords? Things like best running shoes or accounting software?
Sure, the typical 2-word or 3-word queries.
The advice now is to completely ignore those. Go into your data and filter for queries that are 10 words or longer.
10 words. That is not a search query. That is a full paragraph.
It is a prompt. People are copying and pasting their complex questions intended for chatbots directly into the regular search bar, or the behavior is just bleeding over. When you see a query that long, it reveals deep customer uncertainty. It is someone asking, why is my design software crashing when I try to export a massive file to PDF on a Tuesday using Windows 11?
That is suspiciously specific, but I get the point entirely. It is not just about the software crash. It is the entire context around it.
And that context is the goldmine. If you find those long-tail questions, you can write the exact answer that the AI is desperately looking for. You solve the specific uncertainty.
It feels like we are trying to mind read the user through the machine. But surely this approach can go wrong. If we just optimize for the algorithm and churn out these hyper-specific answers, do we not lose the actual soul of the product?
We absolutely do. And we have a massive cautionary tale playing out right now with Pinterest.
Oh, Pinterest. I feel like they've been trying to figure out who they are for the better part of a decade.
Well, remember a few years ago when they basically hacked Google Images? You could not search for a recipe or a haircut without landing on a Pinterest board that required a login. They turned user-generated content into an absolute weapon for traffic.
I remember it well. It was incredibly annoying, but undeniably effective for their growth.
Well, the tables have completely turned. Pinterest is currently drowning in what the industry calls AI slop. Synthetic imagery, fake recipes, generated home decor that completely defies the laws of physics.
So the automation strategy has come back to bite them.
It is choking their core product. It is causing a massive moderation headache because users legitimately cannot tell what is real anymore. And when users lose trust, advertisers pack up and leave. It is a stark lesson. If you rely too heavily on automation hacks, eventually you degrade the experience so much that the platform collapses under its own weight.
Which brings us neatly back to the humans. If the robots are drowning in slop, and Pinterest is full of fake living rooms, where is the actual value right now?
The value is swinging aggressively back to human connection. We are seeing a massive shift in social strategy, particularly on platforms like LinkedIn. The old days of broadcasting, just posting a link and walking away are totally over. Organic reach for that kind of stuff is basically dead.
So what is a new playbook for professionals?
Comments. The strategy is literally comments over posts.
That feels quite small, just replying to other people.
It feels small, but the impact is huge. The data suggests that thoughtful, value-add comments on other people's high-performing posts can drive 3 times more inbound traffic to your profile than your own original content.
So we need to stop trying to be the main character.
Be the best supporting actor. It builds trust way faster.
Cool.
And speaking of trust, there is a counterintuitive stat regarding influencers that genuinely blew my mind. You know the hashtag AD tag?
The universal signal for everyone to immediately scroll past the post.
You would naturally think so. But for creators with over 500,000 followers, using that tag actually acts as a massive credibility signal. It does not harm engagement at all. It often boosts it.
That makes sense for me. Telling me you were paid to say something make me trust you more?
Because it signals legitimacy. It says, I am a professional. A real brand vetted me. I have skin in the game. In a world completely flooded with fake accounts and bots, a verified commercial partnership proves you are a real human running a real business.
That is wild. We have gone full circle where openly selling out is actually a badge of honor because it proves you physically exist.
It is essentially proof of human verification. And we are seeing similar trends with B2B carousels too. The formula now is that the front cover does 80% of the work. You have to hook them instantly with something real.
And does this craving for the human element bleed into the visuals too? If we are all tired of that synthetic slop, what are we actually looking at?
We're looking at the imperfect. The creative trends identified on Reddit for 2026 are pointing heavily toward nostalgia-driven storytelling and imperfect visuals.
What does imperfect really mean in this context?
Think the early internet. Grainy photos, harsh flash photography, messy layouts, things that look like they were genuinely made by a person with a shaky hand, not a server farm rendering a mathematically perfect sphere.
The anti-AI aesthetic.
Exactly. As the tech gets smoother and more flawless, human taste naturally swings back to the messy and the real. We actually want friction.
Speaking of friction, remember when buying software used to be a one-time pain? You paid your money, you got the disc in a box, and you just owned it.
I do. That was before the era of the forever subscription where we basically rent our entire lives $10 at a time.
Well, it looks like that model might finally be cracking.
Yeah.
There is a really interesting case study we looked at from a company called Lovable.
Yes, this is a brilliant example of a brand actually listening to the market signals. Lovable decided to stop forcing their users into a rigid subscription funnel. They introduced a top-up model. Pure pay-as-you-go credits.
Which feels so antiquated. It is like buying prepaid minutes for a chunky mobile phone back in 2005.
It really does, but look at the psychology behind it. A 20% price premium on those top-ups actually performed the best, meaning people were completely willing to pay more per unit just to avoid the trap of a subscription.
They happily paid a premium just for their freedom.
And the overall result, engagement went up significantly, and retention on their paid plans actually rose by 7%. By giving people a clear exit door, they made them feel comfortable enough to stay.
That sounds like a relationship advice column. Let them go, and they will return to you.
It applies to software as a service, too. But this connects to a much deeper economic reality, specifically for Gen Z. We have to look at why they fundamentally hate subscriptions so much.
Is it just a general fear of commitment?
It is basic economic survival. We know Gen Z is largely locked out of the traditional housing market. They cannot realistically save for a house deposit in many major cities. So where does their disposable income go? It goes straight into the stock market, ETFs, index funds, that sort of thing.
They are becoming casual day traders because they cannot be homeowners.
In a way, yes. But the key distinction here is liquidity. A house is a locked asset. A monthly subscription is a locked liability. Stocks are entirely liquid. You can sell them tomorrow if you suddenly need cash. That mindset, prioritizing financial flexibility and liquidity over rigid ownership, perfectly explains why they love pay-as-you-go software models.
That is such a brilliant connection to make. It is not just a user interface preference. It is a direct reflection of their entire economic worldview. Just do not fence me in.
Exactly. And modern brands need to adapt to that. You cannot just force a funnel anymore. You need to align your business model with that deep desire for flexibility. This actually ties directly into how companies launch products generally now. There is this concept of the GTM launch canvas that was detailed in the research.
The launch canvas.
Yeah.
Is this fundamentally different from just, releasing the product to the public?
It is night and day. A lot of companies completely confuse shipping a product with launching a strategy. Shipping is just pushing code, telling people the button is now blue. Launching is a comprehensive strategy. It is about establishing market themes.
Right, because nobody actually cares that you added a blue button. They only care about what that button does for their daily life.
Exactly. A proper launch needs to be a compelling narrative. It should never be a dry feature list. It should be a story about how the user's world is tangibly changing. If you look at the successful brands we have discussed, the ones understanding that firehorse energy, the ones successfully navigating the AI shift, they're all telling engaging stories, not just listing technical specs.
So if we zoom out and look at the big picture here, we have unpacked AI ads specifically targeting the wealthy, robots rapidly skimming our content for specific nouns, the triumphant return of messy human visuals, and the potential death of the forced subscription model. It feels like the common thread running through all of this is humanity striking back.
I reckon that is a very fair assessment. As the technology gets increasingly automated and flawless, the winning business strategies are the ones that feel the most authentically human. Whether that is thoughtfully commenting on a peer's post, offering flexible payment options, or using nostalgic, slightly blurry visuals.
But we cannot just ignore the robots entirely. We still have to feed them.
No, we absolutely have to feed them. But we have to feed them high-quality protein, not synthetic junk food.
So if you were to leave our listeners with one highly actionable thing to mull over this weekend, something to think about while they look for their own firehorse talisman, what would it be?
I would leave you with the concept of question mining. We talked about those long 10-word queries popping up in Google Search Console. There's a massive untapped opportunity right there. Stop looking for generic keywords to rank for. Start actively looking for the complex questions rooted in genuine uncertainty.
Give me a practical example of the difference there.
Do not write generic content trying to rank for best customer software. Write deeply specific content for how do I choose between Salesforce and HubSpot for a small creative agency based in Sydney.
You are targeting the ambiguity.
Yes. If you can find the specific ambiguity in your customer's mind and be the brand that definitively resolves it, you become the default answer. You become the ultimate source of truth for both the AI and the human.
That is incredibly powerful. Do not just sell the product features. Actively solve the confusion.
In a world of infinite generated information, clarity is the most valuable currency we have left.
Clarity is currency. I really like that. I'm going to go see if I can return this angry pony statue and buy some clarity instead. Or maybe just a really nice cup of coffee.
I reckon the coffee is probably a much safer bet.
You are probably right. Well, that is it for us on the show. Go forth, be bold like a fire horse, and maybe check your analytics for those 10-word essays people are typing in.
Catch you next time.
Catch you next time.
Spoken Tech for your ears.